Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast, where on today's show, we're going to be previewing Wednesday night's game against Wolves down at the Gtech. If you haven't already listened to our Villa full-time show, that is live across all platforms, so do go and check that out. We've got loads of Villa fans still in the comments and very little Brentford fans, so please go and check that out and let them know if they're right or wrong about the whole Ollie Watkins situation from last week, which I'm now stopping talking about because it's just boring me. But today, I'm delighted to be joined by Harry from the Wolves 77 Club. Harry, mate, pleasure to have you on. And yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, cheers, Mike. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Lovely. Just before we get going, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to comment down below with your thoughts ahead of the game. Subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Let's just start things off then, Harry. I'm wary that by the time I release this video, you'd have already played Chelsea. Having said that, should we start by talking about the West Ham game and how that has shaped your expectations for the Chelsea game on Sunday?
I'm not confident at all, to be honest, mate. We switched. We've been playing a back five a lot under O'Neill, and he switched to a 4 at the back, like a 4-3-3, and it just didn't work. They hit us on the break a few times. They were all over us first half, to be honest, and we missed the likes of Neto. Aït-Nouri came on. Actually, Aït-Nouri's been injured, but Neto should be back for Chelsea. So by the time people listen to this, he might have played or he might have been on the bench. But we really miss him. We've gone a bit stale recently. We picked up 4 points against Burnley and Forest, but we played really poorly. So we need to turn it around a little bit. We're in and around you guys, aren't we, at the moment in the table?
Yeah.
But really poor performance it was. Not one that will last long in the memory, the West Ham game.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I watched the highlights. I didn't manage to catch the game, but I did watch the highlights, and it looked like they were pretty dominant. But as a more broad question, and something I ask kind of all opposition fans, how would you assess Wolves' start to the season? Because we're almost at the halfway point now.
Yeah, well, because of the mess of the summer with Lopetegui leaving so late and Gary O'Neill coming in so late, like a few days before the season started, we're doing. I'd say we're slightly above. I think the objective was just to survive this season with all the players that we'd lost and the new manager. But yeah, at the beginning it was looking a bit ropey at times. Like there was talks of O'Neill being sacked after the Ipswich loss in the League Cup. But then we bounced back. We had a great win against Man City, which was no one saw coming, and we had a great win against Spurs not so long back. So yeah, it's we're just above par, I'd say, because as I said, the objective was to survive, and we're about 13th now. So you can't moan, but as you know, in football, a lot of Wolves fans are moaning, including me, to be honest.
I think in terms of the games I've watched Wolves play, I thought against Fulham you were very unlucky not to get something out of that game, especially with some of the refereeing decisions, which is a bit of a common theme with Wolves this season, but don't really want to get into more VAR talk because I feel like we speak about it every week. But I mean, I watched the game against Arsenal as well, where you lost 2-1, but I thought on the balance of the game, you probably deserved a point out of that one. And you mentioned the wins against Spurs and City. Would it be fair to say that consistency has been a big problem for Wolves this season?
Yeah, we do really well against the big teams, and we struggle against teams that are in and around us, to be honest. We beat Bournemouth away, but apart from that, we drew away at Luton, lost away at Sheffield United, obviously Fulham recently. But you go on the VAR, to be honest, I know it's horrible to talk about, but I'm not even being biased as a Wolves fan. We've had it so bad this season.
Yeah.
Like, I heard Simon Jordan talking about it, saying that like, oh, O'Neill don't moan when it goes for him. It never goes for us. It just hasn't. But yeah, so we've had that problem, and we could have had a few more points if some of those decisions would have rightly gone our way. But yeah, inconsistent, definitely. When we're underdogs, we play well. When we're expected to win, we struggle. Like we beat Burnley 1-0, but could easily have been a draw. We probably should have lost to Forest at home when we drew 1-1. Fulham away, as you mentioned, was a bit unlucky. But yeah, it's up and down. It really is. It's hard to get. We find it hard to break teams down. We're good on the counter attack, but when we have to take the incentive to try and break teams down, we're not very good at it.
I was going to say Wolves strike me as a team that are having quite a similar season to Brentford in terms of maybe the performances being there and the points not quite equating to that performance. But from that answer, are you saying some of the performances have been bad and that is reflected in the results?
Yeah, there's been quite a few poor performances. And O'Neill, he's done some good things, but I'll be honest, some of these substitutions are bizarre at times. Like we were warned that when we got him, and obviously you speak to Bournemouth fans and that, a few Bournemouth people we spoke to on our podcast and things like that said some of these substitutions, and he's tactics can be a bit like what, and we've had that a few times. Like his substitutions against West Ham, we're 2-0 down. We've got two strikers on the bench, and he brings on a right back and a midfielder, and you just like don't make sense. So yeah, and performances. Obviously, we've been unbelievable against the likes of City. We were, but like I said, it's the ones when we got to try and break them down. We just don't seem to have it. But the concerns have been in seasons gone by. We don't score much, but this season we have actually got quite a good scoring record. Like I think we scored in 13 games in a row or something at one point, which is unheard of for us in years gone by. And obviously, Hwang Hee-chan is hit a lot of form in front of goal, but yeah, very hot and cold. It'd be nice to be consistently good, but it's just not happening at the moment.
I do want to speak a little bit. You mentioned Hwang Hee-chan, but I do want to speak about some players that have impressed me so far for Wolves. Talk to me a bit about Mateus Cunha, because he seems like a real player and one that's banging form. I think he'd scored or assisted in his last 5 games before West Ham, but he strikes me as a player, and I've watched him a few times this season, as someone who gets into good positions and is also up there with the best in the league in terms of his dribbling ability, but does spurn a lot of good chances. I think of that Man United game. I watched that one, and I feel like he could have had a hat trick that day, and he missed a few. But I think he. I can't remember if he scored or not in the end, but he definitely missed a few. Talk to me a little bit about him. Is he fulfilled that £43 million transfer fee yet?
He's very talented. Like he's a brilliant player, but he's just not a goal scorer. He's not a natural finisher. His strength is picking the ball up from like semi-deep and driving at people. He's strong. He's quick. And I think if he has to think about it, he just can't finish. Like that Man United game was a great example because we'd had him the season before, and he was really struggling to score. He didn't score for ages, but he just scares the life out of defenders when he's like that.
Yeah.
But in that game, he missed a one-on-one, put it wide, and he hit the post from about 2 yards out. That's him in a nutshell. But as you mentioned recently, he's done really well, and he's involved in a lot of goals. Like he'll get a few assists as well. Him and Hwang have had a decent little link up. But if he could finish, my God, he wouldn't be playing for Wolves. It'd be like, it reminds me a bit. A lot of people compare him to Adama Traore a little bit. Obviously, Traore is more of an out-and-out winger, but Traore would beat about 4 blokes, get to the edge of the box, or smash it over the bar, or try and cross it, and like hit the North Bank or something. So if he could up his finishing, which he has recently, like I'm being a bit harsh, he'd be an absolute superstar. But has he fulfilled the money at the moment? No, but he's still young. He's only 23, 24 years of age, and he will become good. But we said the same about Traore, and we never saw it. So we'll
I remember that the last few times we played Wolves, especially at Molineux, maybe in that first season we came up, I just remember thinking, Traore, he's so good at those things, beating men, but as soon as he gets to the byline, cross will go past everyone in the box or go into row Z. Someone that has been good though, Hwang Hee-chan, you mentioned him, just signed a new contract which keeps him at Wolves till 2028, if I'm correct. Yeah. How impressed have you been with him this season?
Yeah, like his goal return, he's already gone past our top goal scorer from last year with 8 Premier League goals. He got one in the League Cup as well. But when we first got him on loan, he came in and he hit a bit of a spell then of scoring, and then he got injured and we signed him, and he just dried up and he was playing really bad. And honestly, if he'd have gone this summer, just gone, no one would have complained at all. But then this season, and he's just hit really good form. He is clinical. He's our best finisher. By far, really. But again, he's another one who can go missing. Like I didn't even realise he was on the pitch against West Ham. But sometimes he'll go missing, but then he'll pop up with a winner. Like you don't mind it if he does that, do you? So yeah, he's got a lot to improve on. His fitness isn't the best either. He looks so tired at the moment, and it ain't going to help with a festive period coming up as well. But yeah, it's good to have someone from South Korea as well, because the fandom, like you're Molineux now, when we played Tottenham, because obviously Son, God, I've never seen so many South Koreans in my life, so that's good. He gets a lot of eyeballs on Wolves. But yeah, brilliant finisher, but again, a lot to improve on, really. He can go missing.
Yeah, another familiar face in Dan Bentley. Brentford fans don't have great memories of Bentley, and I don't know if this is harsh because by all accounts he's done all right so far for deputising for Sarr, but genuinely, I can speak on behalf of all Brentford fans. I do not know how that man is starting in the Premier League.
Honestly, he hasn't been amazing. He came in obviously as backup, and he's still backup. He made his debut away at Man United last season, and he had a really good game. Like he pulled off some really good saves. Everyone was like, "Wow, get him in," because Sarr's been a bit dodgy. This season, he come in a few times when Sar's had a knock. Like Sar was injured against West Ham. He was poor against West Ham, really bad. Like some of his positioning was terrible. But against Burnley, he started that game because Sar, I can't remember. I think Sar was injured again, but he pulled off like a fantastic double save and pretty much won us the game. But I'd say, yeah, mate, I agree. He ain't the best, really. He's not. I think if you asked about 10 Wolves fans, about 8 of them would say he's not a starting Premier League goalkeeper. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think we had a run where he was in our team, and there was just a whole season when it was just full of Dan Bentley errors, and almost obviously it's difficult for a goalkeeper because when they make an error, it normally leads to a goal. But he made so many mistakes in that season, so he'll probably get a bit of grief from Brentford fans on Wednesday night. I can attest to that. Any other Wolves players that can hurt us? I've looked at Bellegarde. I think he looks quite good. Anyone else that we should?
Well, hopefully Neto will be back by the time we play you lot. He probably won't be fully fit, but he's our best player by a mile. Like when he's on it. João Gomez and Lamina are midfield. I mean, or particularly Lamina. He came in last January, and him and Dawson pretty much saved us from relegation. They were so vital. And Lamina had like real bad disciplinary issues when he was at like Fulham and that, but he's a great player. Like a bit of a steal getting him. But yeah, João Gomez, Lamina, Neto are the standouts, and Dawson at the back. It depends how you guys approach it, I guess. If we sit back deep and try and hit you on the break, being away from home, I'd rather us do that. If we're like West Ham sat quite deep and we just couldn't handle it, so hopefully you come at us a bit. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm expecting Brentford to probably try and have more of the ball. We've got a couple of people I think might be fit again, but we've been killed by injuries this season. But it should be good. I remember when we played you at your place last season. I remember Lamina ran the game, and he really impressed me. But is he just come back from injury, or was he suspended? Or
Lamina was suspended. Yeah, he had he racked up a load of yellow cards, and he missed the Arsenal game, I think it was. But yeah, he's been back.
Yeah. No, he's really good. I really like him. Talk to me a bit about Gary O'Neill. I know you mentioned him at the top. I'm a big fan of him as a person. I was watching him on Monday Night Football the other week. Really impressed with his insight, and also someone who isn't your average PR trained speaking bollocks manager. Every interview he really wears his heart on his sleeve, and probably rightly so with the way Wolves have been hard done by this season with VAR. Obviously, there were a few question marks over the fact that he got sacked at Bournemouth, and then Lopetegui leaving and him coming in so close to the season. Were you happy with the appointment, and what have Wolves fans made of his start at Wolves?
Yeah, well, when obviously it all went down with Lopetegui, I was gutted personally. I wanted to keep Lopetegui, but Gary O'Neill was an underwhelming appointment. It's got to be said. You can see why the club did it because he kept Bournemouth up. But when he come in, it was kind of like, well, let's give him a go. And his interviews, like you said, like were quite refreshing. He's quite. He can sometimes be a bit annoying when you've lost. He kind of says the same sort of things, but yeah, his interview's been refreshing. It's very open. That Monday Night Football has shot his profile through the roof, not just with Wolves fans. I think with the Premier League, didn't it? It was such a good thing he did there. But he's done okay. He has, like I said, around when we lost to Ipswich in the League Cup, and I think we drew at Luton just before that. He was starting to like piss the Wolves fans off a bit, like alienate them. And honestly, after that Ipswich one, I wouldn't have been surprised if they he'd have walked or something. He was honestly getting that toxic. But then we beat Man City the game after, so that was it. Then it was like right. But yeah, speaks well. He's done very well considering the circumstances. It'd be nice for him to get a few players in of his own, I guess. He deserves time. And it's nice to have like a British manager again because it's been a while. I think Lambert was the last one we had for a little bit just before Nuno. But yeah, he's good. He speaks well. Uses his hands a lot when he's speaking. I think he needs to stop doing that. But yeah, he's good. He's good. He's done well. Probably about 7 or 8 out of 10 so far, I'd say.
Just on a quick side note, how do Wolves fans feel about Nuno at Forest?
Oh, it's like seeing an ex or something. It's horrible. I just love when he got sacked. I was absolutely devastated. A bit like the Forest fans probably are about Steve Cooper, but I suppose it naturally come to an end. He's the best manager we've ever had in my lifetime. Obviously, we got to Europe and that. He was quite stubborn. Wasn't the best in interviews, and I don't think it'll work at Forest. Honestly, I didn't think it'd work at Spurs, but we'll see. But yeah, he just transformed our club completely. Like it's hard to see. I don't want him to do well there. I don't want him to see him do well for another Premier League club. I might be bitter if he does. I hate it.
I don't want to see him do well for Forest. I can say that with how much money they've
Yeah.
spent this season.
Oh no.
That big deal
Yeah.
is not being made. They spent so
Mm.
much money in the summer window,
Yeah.
and they're still looking like they might go down. Incredible. And anyway, how would you how would you assess Gary O'Neill's style of football? You mentioned counter attacking. I know you noticed you set up in like a sort of 3-4-3 almost, or a
Mm.
3-5-2, depending on how you spin it. But how would you assess his football?
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the season, we started off playing four at the back, and obviously you saw that United game, just went at them. Bit of counter attacking as well. Then we played Brighton. We still had four at the back, and I think he wanted to be on the front foot, and they absolutely battered us, Brighton. Like we couldn't handle it. And then he switched, went to a five, bit more pragmatic. I think he saw like he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And yeah, really, like when we're underdogs, it is. We used to do it under Nuno. We were so good at it under Nuno. Like we beat anyone in the top six, we fancied our chances. We beat Man City a few times, and like when we beat Man City under O'Neill, it was very deep, like set up, counter
Mhm.
attacking. And then, unfortunately, when we do try and play on the front foot, like I've mentioned, which I think Gary O'Neill wants to eventually get to, just doesn't work. And we haven't really got the players for it at the moment. But he adapts a lot. But what it is with him, he in game, some of his in-game decisions, he really delays reacting. If you get what I mean, like he don't make
Yeah.
substitutions quick enough, which Lopetegui was really good at. That was refreshing to see with Lopetegui, because Bruno Lage was the same. But to criticise him a bit, O'Neill, he doesn't react quick enough in game for me. He sticks with what he's doing, even when you're 2-0 down against West Ham at half time. Don't make a change, things like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see when he gets a few plays in of his own, if he can start playing what he wants. But easier said than done, isn't it?
It sounds like he might have a few similarities to Thomas Frank in the way that he's quite malleable, depending on who he's playing. In terms of
Mm,
if you're going to play Man City, you know you're going to be in a low block and then hit them on the counter. But
yeah.
Thomas Frank's quite adept at kind of assessing the opposition and then figuring out a game plan from there. But he's not quite rigid like some managers are this season. It seems like
Mm.
in terms of they're going to be persistent in playing out from the back. But I feel like Brighton, you're going to get if you try and play on the front foot against Brighton, I think
Oh,
anyone would get murdered. This honestly,
they
we went to their place.
yeah.
We went to their place last week, and it was just chasing shadows the whole game. It was so frustrating, so
Yeah.
frustrating. Another question, but it is going to be interesting if he does well. I think it will definitely last until January. But if he does manage to get the players in January, it will be interesting to see how the second half of the season goes.
Yeah, and there's rumours there is going to be a bit of activity as well, because I mentioned he didn't bring on Sasa Kalajic, and Fabio Silva's definitely going apparently, and Johnny is a bit of a fan favourite from the Nuno days, but he's had 2 ACL injuries. He'll go, so we could see like 3 players go out and a few come in. So obviously, if he lasts till the summer, which I think he will, I can't see us going down this season, especially with some of the teams down the bottom. It'd be interesting to see what happens then, because we did bring
Mm.
a couple in the summer, but it was when we got rid of Nunes, we brought in like Enzo Goncal. I can't remember his second name. We hadn't even seen him. He's like 18 years of age and he's been in the under 23s. We brought in Santi Bueno, which wasn't him. I think that was already sorted when Lopetegui was there. He's been a bit dodgy, to be honest. So yeah, it's obviously Tommy Doyle's come in from City, which I think is an option to buy, which I
Mm-hmm.
think might have been his, but I think that's part of the Nunes deal. So it'd be interesting, yeah. He deserves time. He deserves a chance to bring his own players in, and he will survive. He will. It'd be an absolute disaster if we got relegated from this point. It really would, with the
Yeah.
3 teams down there.
Yeah, I know. It's not looking. It's looking quite hard to look past those 3 teams that have come back
Yeah.
up. Apart from Forest, who I really do hope somehow get dragged in. Last couple of questions, mate. One that I asked to all opposition fans: what have you made of Brentford so far this season / in the Premier League?
Yeah, Brentford. I'll be honest. I don't really watch 4 games of Brentford unless Wolves are playing them. Obviously, I'll see the highlights. It feels like, from the outside looking in, it feels like you started off on a flyer, didn't you, this year?
Well,
So I've got
we done all right. The performances were there, but then we had this injuries started to come in. We lost Rico Henry. Obviously,
dipped a bit.
Tony's out as well. Yeah.
Is it Mbeumo, your winger or striker?
Yeah,
I've got him in the fantasy league. He's been flying.
He has, yeah. He's now injured for 3 months. The injury list is just stacking up at the moment for us.
Yeah, well, obviously back when we was in League One, I went down to your old ground a few times. Pub on every corner, win it famously, and I remember we were battling with you lot to get up to the Championship, and you come up with us. So it's great to see you in the Premier League, obviously, and it's a great story, really, isn't it? The fact you've stayed up and that, and yeah, mate, when I've watched you, it's been you're good to watch, definitely. I really like. I think he got sent off the other day. Is it Ben Mee, your defender?
Yeah, Ben Mee.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I think he scored. Did he score against us last year at your place or the year before? But I really
Yeah,
like
no, I
him.
think he did. Yeah, I think he did
Yeah,
actually. In the
like
1-1
over
draw,
kick
was
or
it?
something. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
over kick. I remember that. But I like him at the back for you. But yeah, whenever we play, you're never confident going into it. Put it that way. But yeah, good to watch you, definitely.
Was it a good away day at Griffin Park when you went?
I've never been. I haven't been to the new one. I went to the old one. Yeah, I went to
Yeah,
the old
yeah,
one.
Griffin Park. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
Griffin Park. Yeah, I went twice. I went in League One, and I went the year after in the Championship, and you beat us. We beat you 3-0
Yeah.
in League One, and then you beat us 3-0, I believe, the year after. Great, mate. I went straight down there, straight to the ground. I went to one of the pubs on the corner.
Yeah.
And then
It's a good
straight in
laugh.
the away end, obviously, was old fashioned, standing up, no seats at the time. Yeah, I loved it 'cause it felt like proper football in the grounds like that. It's
Yeah.
I prefer grounds like that than the modern ones, to be honest. I really do.
Oh,
That's what I
100%.
love about
100%.
Molineux, to be honest. Molineux's got a bit of an old ground feel to it still. I don't want us
Yeah.
to update it too much.
The one thing I will say about Molineux though is the away end. Oh god,
Oh,
I
it's
feel
worse.
it's
Worse.
so
Yeah.
bad. It's
I
so
don't know why they
bad.
do it. I used to
They
have a
really
season
do
ticket
the
in the
away fans
South
dirty
Bank.
with that.
I used to have a season ticket in the South Bank back in the day, and they used to sit sometimes the smaller clubs would sit in half the South Bank, and they'd move me to that Steve Ball lower. Like they'd put the home fans in there. It's a bad view in it, and like it must be so hard to generate an atmosphere being spread across the whole bottom. It's just
I know,
like
yeah.
terrible. Yeah,
I have to admit it.
worst away end, but that's good for us, isn't it? We don't want it to be a good away end. We want it to be crap.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have to admit it's my least favourite to look forward to on the calendar.
Terrible.
There you
Terrible.
go. Last one, mate. How do you expect the game to go next week?
Oh God, we're in similar positions. We're lacking confidence. Depending on how we get on against Chelsea, I'd take a draw. I'll go for a 1-1 draw, but that's me being a bit optimistic. I must admit, I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I mean it is dependent on that Chelsea result. I don't know. The thing is with Chelsea, they're so inconsistent at the moment. You don't really know what you're going to get when you play them. But you are playing them at home, and you do have a good record so far this season against some of the big clubs. Even though Chelsea have been sort of
Christmas Eve,
pretty shit. Yeah, and it's Christmas Eve. Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah,
but yeah, Harry, that was a pleasure, mate. The Ealing Road podcast will be back at some point in the next week. I'm not sure if we're going to do a Wolves review / Palace preview before the Palace game, just by virtue of this being a really busy period for everyone and for football. But stay tuned across our socials for any updates. And just before we go, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to drop a comment down below with your thoughts ahead of the Wolves game. Subscribe to both the YouTube and the Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Ealing Road Pod on on Twitter, and no, sorry, other way around. At Ealing Road Pod on Instagram and at the Ealing Road on Twitter. There we go. Harry, it's been a pleasure, mate, and good luck for next week.
Yeah, cheers, Mike. Thank you.